Welcome and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Your host Steve here with Geek Boulevard. I've finally seen Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, and I'm here to give you the skinny on my full and final thoughts on the movie, the good, the bad, and of course, my final score. Spoilers, of course, will come up later in the review, but I will give you a full disclaimer before getting to that point. So for now, I will keep this as spoiler-free as possible. But of course, I have included timestamps down below to make skipping that portion of the video a little bit easier if you want to avoid said spoilers. Thunderbolts is directed by Jake Schreier. It is rated PG-13 with a runtime of 2 hours and 6 minutes. Ensnared in a death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes, Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, Taskmaster, and John Walker embarks on a dangerous mission that forces them to confront the darkest corners of their past. I'm gonna kick things off with the things I liked about this movie. Firstly is our main cast, of which have really great chemistry with each other when they're on screen. That to me was the winning aspect of this movie, as if this didn't work, then the whole movie just wasn't gonna work. Everyone has like a really cool moment that allows them to kind of flex their, their skill set a little bit. The lion's share of that chemistry though, obviously is being handled by Florence Pugh and David Harbour, who are just as great together here as they were in Black Widow. Yelena's, darkness is explored in a big way in this film, and the way she's able to tackle that darkness head on and not be afraid or ashamed of it was really well told, and that is with Harbour's help in his performance as Alexei, Red Guardian, who is the comedic relief for the film, really. And let's be honest, who isn't rooting for David Harbour at this point? He just oozes so much enthusiasm, and he's having the time of his life on set playing this character, and I enjoyed every minute that he was on screen and bantering with the other characters. It was just so fun to watch. But this was Yelena's movie in the grand scheme of things, and I thought it was well deserved and well earned, with Pugh's performance being just a major standout. I also really liked Louis Pullman as Robert Reynolds, or Bob as he's called. He seems like an unassuming guy, but as the trailers hint, there is more to him than you think. And we'll talk more about him, go into depth in the spoiler section, but I really liked his performance for sure. I want to also talk about the action in the movie, which was really well done, well choreographed. Yelena's fight scenes I thought were well choreographed too, for the most part. I really enjoyed the action scene that was shown in the trailer, of how they all first met. I just thought the conflicting mission objectives and fighting while also trying to, figure out who's here to do what. It was both very comedic and tense, as they realized they were all sent to essentially kind of go down with the ship of all these secrets that Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is trying to hide, who's played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. But I think all throughout the film, there was just very solid action moments, and I didn't find myself getting bored or eagerly, waiting for the next set piece. I liked spending time with these characters and, understanding their flaws more and more, which is also something the film does well, and that is tackling the topic of mental health. All of the main characters have made mistakes in their past, and they don't see themselves as heroes whatsoever. They still feel that they're screw-ups, despite doing everything they can to help right those wrongs from their past by doing good for other people, but they just screw things up even more. And that's relatable, and it sucks feeling that way. Wanting to help, but just kind of making things messier in the process is, something we can all understand and relate to. And sometimes that can leave us winding up feeling alone and depressed, and the way that Thunderbolts handles that by the end, yeah, I got a little emotional for sure. Everyone has really high highs, and there's also some very dark lows that follow that, and it's translated well here on screen. Despite all the good things I have to say about this movie though, there were some things I think could have been improved. Without further ado, let's get into the bad. I think Valentina is probably the worst substitute for a Nick Fury type character, honestly. She's our bureaucratic villain of the film. I've had just no connection to her as a character, and even after seeing her get significantly more screen time here in Thunderbolts with some more backstory that gives a little more insight into her motivations, I just don't really like her as a character, and I wish Marvel didn't write her to be such a pivotal character to kind of fill in those shoes of getting a team together. I just want Nick Fury back, but they ruined that too. Now, to be upfront, and I'm sure most of you expected this, not all the characters get a lot of screen time in terms of the development of them. Bucky is in the film, but mostly doesn't really come into the story fully until the climax, which was a bit of a bummer, but whatever. It was cool to see Bucky come to play with everyone else regardless, and I just love Sebastian Stan as an actor. I think he's great, so it was cool to see him, you know, be in more than just like, you know, the final portion of the film. He's in it for most of it, but he doesn't really have a whole lot to do outside of those big action moments. Ghost as a character was very weak and thin despite, you know, enjoying her role in the story. We hadn't seen her since her last appearance as the villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp in 2018. That was like 7 years ago. So it would have been nice if we were brought up to speed on what she's been up to all this time, and there was just none of that. She tries to steal from Valentina, and that's pretty much how she gets reintroduced. There was an opportunity in the film to kind of re-explore her past a little bit, because I'm sure some have forgotten about it by this point, or rather just forgotten her as a character, which, you know, who could blame you? But it's never brought up or mentioned in dialogue, so that was, you know, very disappointing to see. And John Walker, he was just an asshole for pretty much the whole movie, and I get that's kind of in his character innately, but I just found him to be really unsympathetic to all the stuff that went on with him in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he never really gave me a reason to like him outside of like some action scenes. There was just no development with his character at all. Taskmaster we'll get into, but we need to get into spoilers to do that. So here is your spoiler warning. I will be going over some major story details about Bob, as well as the ending and post-credit scene, so if you don't want any of that ruined for you, you are more than welcome to skip this portion of my review or keep watching. I leave it entirely up to you, but you have been warned. So Taskmaster gets killed pretty quickly too, in the scene where they all attack each other, no less. This is the second time that Taskmaster was done dirty, and I just don't understand why you can't give this character a fair shake. Sure, you made her the antagonist of Black Widow, the bones were there, but there was no meat on it. And you brought this character back for a few seconds just to kill her off, and it felt like nothing at all. She just was shot in the head, and all right, time to move on. Taskmaster, someone who can mimic other heroes' abilities, is so cool thematically, and she has a tragic backstory that you could have explored more thematically, but no, it just felt really pointless to even include her. But what wasn't pointless, at least to me, was how Bob was handled, played by Louis Pullman. Bob is the MCU's version of the Sentry, the Marvel version of Superman, with, you know, a few screws loose though. Seeing Bob's role in the story and how he comes to be like the physical antagonist known as the Void was great and quite sad to see, but I thought that they handled his entry point into the MCU with a lot of grace. Bob was just a normal guy who was dealt a pretty, you know, shit hand in life and was addicted to drugs and getting into trouble a lot of the time, but gets an opportunity of a lifetime to become part of a medicine trial to become better than what he is. He gets abilities from this trial, but his memory is, you know, very foggy, and we find out that he has a bit of an unstable mind, you know, a darker half, if you will, that was physically manifested when he got his powers, and that half is called the Void. I really like the way that the Void looks. I like his menacing look that he presents. All you see of him is his dark silhouette, and, you know, you see like the eye shine, and there's a moment in the film where things seem really dire, and all of our Thunderbolts decide to find a way to stop him by going into this dark abyss that the Void is, you know, manifesting over the city, and essentially fight a psychological battle with Bob, who is also stuck here, and they give him the courage to stop the Void for good. At first, when the Void faces Bob in this battle of, you know, the good half versus the darker half, it's more physical as Bob gathers the courage to start, you know, beating on him, but it's to no effect. And then Yelena manages to run up to Bob. She was like trapped earlier, manages to break free, and she embraces him and tells him like, I'm here, it's okay. And then we see Bob kind of start to well up with tears, and then everyone else comes over and just embraces him, and that's kind of how they beat the Void. That overwhelming feeling of being loved by others, not being alone. It was an emotional scene, and I really enjoyed it for what it was. I like the comic accurate suit too, and the action scene that he has as the Sentry when he has to fight the Thunderbolts in the tower was pretty badass, even though the CGI was a little, weird at times. And I think Bob as a character is, the perfect study of mental health, whether that is, DID or bipolar, depression, anxiety. There's a lot to chew on there. Now I want to talk about the mid-credit scene and the post-credit scene. So we'll start with the mid-credit scene, of course, which was fine, I guess. It's with Red Guardian, so it was more for comedy, but our team are now officially known before the movie ends as the New Avengers, which is going to cause problems with Sam and his Avengers, I'm sure, PR-wise, because he's trying to trademark the Avengers name, which just seems a bit weird, but whatever. But Red Guardian's in the store and he sees a Wheaties box with, their faces on them, because now these guys are legit Avengers now, and he basically creeps a woman out and just scaring her off, which was funny, but it wasn't all that necessary. The post-credit scene, however, sets up big things to come. Our new Avengers, that being Bucky, Yelena, Ghost, Walker, Red Guardian, and Bob, the Sentry, are in the renovated Avengers Tower in New York and are inspecting an anomaly in space. This anomaly happens to be a ship, and that ship has a big 4 painted over it, which tells us that the Fantastic Four have officially arrived in their universe. It did kind of give me that nostalgic feeling of how post-credit scenes in the MCU used to be, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this felt kind of forced a little bit, that they are, all right, we got to start setting things up for these next Avengers movies, so they had to shoot something and to kind of, set all of that up. And that's kind of what this felt like a little bit. I just think that this whole multiverse saga has just been a giant waste of time for the most part. Nothing really was cohesive like the Infinity Saga was, and it just feels like a mad rush to get to these next Avengers films to kind of just close out the saga. I definitely don't think I'm alone in this, but I don't think these next Avengers films are gonna hit as good as Infinity War and Endgame did. I just don't see that happening. I've just come to accept that fact. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I'm not optimistic given the Russos' current track record outside of the MCU, but I mean, now that they're back in the MCU, maybe that can change. And of course, casting Downey as Doctor Doom is a move that either will or won't pay off. I'm gonna keep my expectations low. I think that's probably for the best. In conclusion, I'm giving Thunderbolts a score of 3 out of 5. Despite Florence and David stealing the show here, everyone in the cast of this closing film in Phase 5 has great chemistry and is easily the best part about the film. The action is well shot, and the way that the story tackles mental health issues was fantastic and made me a little emotional by the film's end. But some characters don't get to be explored as thoroughly as I would have liked them to, and the film's post-credit stinger felt like a rushed scene to set up the major events to come in the multiverse saga. But now I want to know what you guys thought of Thunderbolts. Did you enjoy the film? Are you looking forward to these next 2 Avengers films? Where would you rank it on your list of Phase 5 projects that have already been released? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed, and sub Geek Boulevard, tick that notification bell so you can always be notified when my next film review or trailer reaction drops on the channel. Thank you for watching, folks. Stay classy, stay geeky, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Alexei, have you slept?
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
I'd like not to die today, so maybe somebody else should be driving.